Alright, there's going to be a lot to cover throughout the course of this video. Few things that I'm going to try to cover will be the Mosquito Fire, the Fairview Fire, the impacts Hurricane K could have on California as it comes up, including thunderstorms, flood watches, and then also just that ongoing heat wave in California. We're going to try to see when that will finally be coming to an end. Now, this is going to be a little bit of a different format than my usual video. I usually try to do just a 10-minute kind of in-depth video and then a 2-minute concise update and forecast. But for this one, this is just going to be almost more like a live researching process. I'm a broadcast meteorologist at KSBW on the Central Coast, and I'm going in a few hours to do the evening news, and this is all the stuff that I have to research to put together my forecast today. So I figured I might as well just do this research live so that we can all kind of figure out what's going on in California together. So the first thing that I think we could do to just get our idea about what happened on the Mosquito Fire yesterday, I think that's probably my top priority in California, so that's what we're going to talk about first. Then we'll probably go to the Fairview, then Hurricane K. But do just want to look at this one first because we had some extreme activity on this yesterday. In fact, I could just show how wild the activity was on it. I believe I posted a time lapse to my Twitter. So right here, you can see what was happening on the Mosquito Fire yesterday. Our high temperature was 101 degrees, relative humidity got down to 15%. As you can see, there's a lot of fuel in this area, very steep terrain, and it turned into, I would say, the most active wildfire that we've had this season. So yeah, that's why that's the top priority right there. First thing that we can do is zoom into the Fairview Fire just so you know where we are. This is about 35 miles west of Lake Tahoe. And then we've got Forest Hill over here, looks like Volcanoville down there, Michigan Bluff. And it looks like the data got cut off right there. So that's unfortunate. We don't know how far south the fire goes. But one thing that I always like to do just to get an idea of how the fire grew yesterday, so we can square it up right in the top, maybe zoom in a little bit. And then we can click on the most recent data that we got from flights, and looks like most of that growth was actually towards the south. And then we also had that growth towards the west as well. And that goes along with the direction the winds were blowing yesterday. We were talking about that when we were looking at the satellite imagery yesterday. There was just all the smoke was going first east. So that was some of that growth right there. And then it almost looked like the winds shifted. Some of it started blowing north. Some of it started blowing south. And then it looks like that fire did take off towards the south. Now, we have the largest amount of structures right around Forestville here. So do just want to look in here. Looks like that line goes up to right there. And if you don't know, fires like to move uphill. So the concern here would be that the fire would continue to push towards these structures. I think that's probably the area of California that I'm watching the most closely throughout the day today. And then looks like we have Volcanoville here. I guess the concern for that spot would be that this fire would then move up this hill right there or continue to spread in this direction. So looking at that, now I also want to see what was going on the southern edge because it certainly took off down here. Looks like we have a canyon right here. So what I would imagine is that in the afternoon, when it heats up, you get winds rushing up this canyon. And then that just led to all that fire spread right there. I can't actually confirm that, but that is something that happens with weather. When you have a canyon like this, heats up, the air rushes out of the canyon almost like a chimney. And then that was able to take some of that fire and spread it in this direction. So let's just go back to Twitter actually. And because I just saw that the Fairview, or this is the Fairview Fire right here. We'll cover that in a second. Interested to see if we have one of those for the Mosquito Fire. So Neil LaRoe, he's a great account to follow right there. The San Jose State Fire Weather Research Laboratory was on this fire yesterday, and that's where I'm working to get my master's in meteorology. I didn't go out on it with them. I was working at KSBW yesterday, but they basically take these radar trucks out and scan the plume, and then we're able to take that data, put it into a wildfire model, and then try to figure out how the fire is going to move based on all the different variables and how the fire actually creates its own weather. So that was yesterday. You can see how active it was. That's a shot from yesterday. There's Hurricane K. That's a little preview of what we're going to be talking about in a few minutes. Not exactly sure how long it's going to take to get there. Not really seeing one of those update videos. We're just going to try to figure it out on our own. Good place to start. Looking at the satellite imagery just to see how much smoke is coming off of it right now, and looks like there is a very large amount of smoke. No big surprise there. Let's go down to 24, so less of it's during nighttime. You could actually see where the fire was based on that little black dot on the map. Overnight, your winds calm down. That's why all this smoke just sort of settled down right there. As we get into the afternoon, winds will pick up. It'll push some of this smoke out, but it'll also kind of fan the fire, so then the fire is going to become more active. So that doesn't exactly tell us too much right there. We can just check a time lapse from the ground. Yeah, just very hazy conditions right now. This is the exact same shot that I just showed from my Twitter account where the plume was very active. Looks like the fire behavior at least is calm right now, but we do have very poor air quality. And it's not exactly a big surprise that it's calmer, because that typically happens overnight, and in the morning, your winds calm down, your temperature is lower, your relative humidity is higher, meaning there's more moisture in the air and a little bit more in your finer fuels. And then in the afternoon, as things get warmer and drier, that's when the fire really picks up. So that's why the big thing that we're going to be looking at with the mosquito fire is that weather forecast to see just how hot it's going to get throughout the day today. Now this map also shows where some of that recent growth was. This might actually be an easier way to look at it. You can see where that previous fire perimeter was right there in the red shading, and then all those red dots are where the fire spread yesterday. So again, most of that growth towards the west and the south. But then we did get some of that growth towards Forest Hill and Volcanoville. And I think that's actually my main concern, because if we look at the fire right here and we turn on structures, you can see that there's hundreds, if not thousands, of structures to the west and the southwest of this fire. So that's why that I would say the growth on the western edge of this fire is the most concerning, because that is where the largest amount of structures are. But I am also concerned about a lot of these structures down here, because that's where we had a lot of that growth yesterday. And usually if you have canyon type winds, the canyon is going to be staying the same every day, so you're going to get those same winds every day. Now, one other thing that I could just show while we're on this map is fire history. Not a whole lot of fire history. Can't tell if this is 2016 Trailhead fire, but then we also have 2008 Bottle fire. Trailhead fire maybe cleared out some fuels right there. That could help us a little bit once the fire gets to that location. But I think the main story on this fire is that there's really not a lot of fire history directly around the mosquito fire. So because of that, we just have a large amount of fuels and basically plenty of fuel for this fire to consume as it continues to move forward. Now, do just want to check out Watch Duty. This is also another great place to get information. I believe I put the link for this into the description of this video. So this one shows updated 4 hours ago, up to 25,108 acres, 0% containment. So we had a lot of growth yesterday. Can't exactly remember the acreage we had when I did my update yesterday. Looks like it was 13,705, and that was as of 13 hours ago, or at least when we had our most recent data. And then if we look at watch duty, so 25,000. So quite a bit of growth. Yesterday was certainly one of those extreme wildfire danger days. That's actually what my thesis is about, where I use machine learning to figure out what are the variables, or what are the thresholds for the variables that lead to some of those extreme fire growth days of where you get more than 10,000 acres burned. And my model and all the data I use basically show if you have temperatures over 76 degrees, relative humidity below 17%, those are 2 of the 9 factors that I looked at. You have some of the components for an extreme fire day, and yesterday 101 degrees, so clearly we met that temperature threshold. Relative humidity, I think the lowest I saw was 13%, so we met that threshold as well. So not a huge surprise that we had such an active day, especially just with that ongoing heat drying out all that vegetation. So with watch duty, if you live in this area, probably the first thing you should look at, and probably the first thing that I should have looked at as well, is the evacuation orders, warnings, notes. Because of that, or with those, I usually don't dive into them too much. I will just say if you go to Inciweb, I also put the link for this in the description, there's a map right there. So if you scroll down to incident overview, and evacuation information links are below, also compiled on this page. And then it'll bring you to this page right here, which is a nice little map of what's going on. That purple color is the fire perimeter. And then that red color is where there's mandatory evacuations. And then the yellow one is evacuation warnings. So basic summary there when it comes to those evacuation warnings and orders is we had a lot of updates yesterday. So this is probably the top thing that you should stay updated on if you are living in this area. So looking at 5:24 a.m., Watch Duty had an update, said fire activity has increased in the Forest Hill area with additional engines being sent in for structure defense in the town and law enforcement working to ensure everybody is out using sirens. So that was the new perimeter right there. And this could be useful to anybody who lives in this area. Fire is 0.3 miles from the end of Church Street in Forest Hill, so very close to Forest Hill at this point, basically in Forest Hill. 0.66 miles from the end of Baltimore Mine Road, 0.73 miles from Wentworth Springs Road and Ditch Camp Road, and 2.66 miles from Stumpy Meadows Lake. So one thing we could try to do, so I think the one that's the most concerning there is 0.39 miles from Church Street in Forest Hill. I wonder if we can put that in here and see exactly where that is. Church Street, Forest Hill. Okay, so it looks like that, can't exactly tell. I think it's the yellow one that's highlighted as Church Street. Hopefully that's how Google Earth works. So our recent fire perimeter was there, and then now we're showing, or they're saying it's 0.39 miles from Church Street there. So yeah, again, Forest Hill going to be the main concern today because it does look like that fire has continued to move towards that area. So just coming back here, this was last night. Yeah, some activity continuing overnight. Don't think there's a whole lot of other new information there. So now, I think we looked at that one. One thing that we actually can do on this, I'm going to do a big disclaimer on this. A lot of the times I don't even like to show this during my videos because it can be quite misleading and create some unnecessary fear, but it is sometimes helpful to just see how much heat is coming off of the fire. If we go GOES detections, so it looks like most of the heat that we're picking up, not a big surprise in the exact same places that we had that growth yesterday. So if you look at the MODIS and VIIRS, it had some, MODIS and VIIRS are the satellites that pick up this heat data. So we had some on that western side pushing towards Forest Hill, but then most of it on the southern and eastern side. Then if we look at GOES detections, which is where the satellites are picking up heat right now, or I believe it means in the last 15 minutes, that's how often that gets updated. Looks like most of it in the exact same places, that western area, but then that red color showing more heat on the eastern and southern edge. So now let's just Take a look at the weather right now. This is the station that I think is the most important to look at, right in Forest Hill right there. We are already at 83 degrees and 26% relative humidity, and it's 9:30 in the morning. So right here I took actually let's do it right on Forest Hill. Let's move it directly to Forest Hill right there. Zoom back out. I think the number one thing I'm concerned about is how dry it's going to get. So we'll look at relative humidity first. And it's usually driest around 4 p.m. Wow. So that's drier than we were looking at yesterday. Looks like it's potentially going to be getting down into the single digits. So that would, based on that information alone, if the air is drier, the fuels are going to be a little bit drier. We've also had the ongoing heat continuing to dry out those fuels the last week. So just based on that, and the fact that there's a very large amount of unburnt fuel in this area, I would say, on that alone, I would say this afternoon is going to actually be more active than yesterday, which is saying something because when we look at that shot from yesterday on my Twitter, that's about as active of a fire as we've seen this entire year. So just coming back here, the other important thing to look at is temperature, 101 degrees. So that would actually hit the exact same high temperature that I picked up on this station yesterday. Or this is the model, but when we were looking at the stations yesterday, highest that I saw was 101 degrees. And then when it comes to the wind gusts, so this is showing very similar conditions to yesterday where we get that flow pushing towards the northeast, which would act to push the fire towards the northeast. We certainly saw that 2 days ago. But based on some of that topography we were looking at on Google Earth, it looks like how the winds are working on this fire are a lot more complex than just moving in one direction. It seems like there's a lot of steep and rugged terrain moving in different directions, and that has effects on your winds throughout the day today. So I think winds are going to be the wild card throughout the day today, because yesterday we saw them going east, then they went north a little bit, then it looked like they moved the fire more south than anything later in the day. So I think right now it's showing the predominant flow will try to push that fire towards the northeast, which would hopefully be good news for Forest Hill and Volcanoville, because that would try to push the fire away from you. But based on yesterday and some of the topography, this fire can pretty much move in any direction it wants. At least it looks like that way. Now, one other thing I do want to check on, because I've said this a couple times in my videos, and I'm not actually positive I'm doing it right. Let's go from the fire to Lake Tahoe. So now, since it's grown a little bit, now it's actually about 30 miles away. So pretty good distance away from Lake Tahoe. I think that's more just as a useful reference point to see where this fire is. Now, one thing, this is going to kind of fast forward to what we're going to be talking about later, but I do actually want to see if we have any thunderstorms coming through this area. Doesn't look like today. Saturday, maybe a few thunderstorms popping up around the Sierra. Sunday, maybe some thunderstorms again. Not really showing anything directly over the fire right now, but there's a few close. And usually the models have a pretty hard time of knowing exactly where thunderstorms are going to pop up. When it comes to that, so that's from the moisture coming in from Hurricane K. When it comes to thunderstorms, that can actually be good or bad news for a fire. It's good news when it brings in a bunch of clouds that diminishes the heating that you could pick up. And the best news is when it actually brings some rainfall. I forget what fire it was in Northern California earlier this year, but the fire was just taking off. Then we got some thunderstorms, dropped a bunch of rain on the fire. I think it might have been the McKinney. Dropped a bunch of rain on the fire and really helped calm that fire down, brought a bunch of moisture to the fuels, so then it spread less rapidly the next couple days. That's what I'm going to be hoping for on the mosquito fire over the next few days. Now, the concern is thunderstorms can also be very bad for wildfire because they can bring in very erratic winds, especially if they don't go directly over the fire. You can get the outflow from that thunderstorm, really leading to some erratic winds and some rapid fire spread. And then what's also bad news with some thunderstorms is it can, oh, right there, that's 3 p.m. Saturday. That's the closest we've seen those thunderstorms to the Mosquito fire. So definitely going to be watching that closely. So what I was about to say is the other concern with thunderstorms is it can lead to lightning strikes, which could lead to new fires, which can lead to kind of resources being more depleted. That's why I think in the title of this video I have it be like fire, heat, hurricanes, and it's actually all kind of mixing together throughout the next couple of days because we already have the fires on the ground. But then the hurricane's going to bring in some moisture, which is going to lead to thunderstorms. That could also potentially lead to new fires if there's lightning. It could always also spread the existing fires if there's outflow winds. And then where we've already had fires, the rain from thunderstorms could lead to some flash flooding or some debris flows where a lot of that vegetation has been cleared out. So it's one of the most complex California updates and forecasts that I think I've ever seen, just because there's so many different things going on and they're all kind of connected with each other. Now, one other thing that we can look at, this actually will sometimes impacts more people than the fire itself. So while it's not exactly the thing that I have the most expertise in, which is the more weather, meteorology, fire weather aspect of things. It is always, and people always ask me to show the air quality maps because it does affect the largest amount of people, because smoke from the Mosquito fire is clearly spreading out over much of Northern California, even settled into the valley a little bit this morning. Again, as winds pick up, it will clear out some of that smoke, but then it's also going to fan the fire and we're going to get some more smoke created. Right now, though, it looks like we do have some unhealthy air in parts of the Central Valley, and then just some unhealthy for sensitive groups throughout much of the San Joaquin Valley, and then even some moderate air pushing into the Bay Area where we do see some of that smoke right there. So, not sure what that one was. We'll delete that right there. So I think that basically sums up the Mosquito fire. It's up to 25,108 acres, 0% contained. When it comes to this fire, the key spots I'm going to be watching today will be Forest Hill and Volcanoville, just to see where those are again. It's on the Forest Hill is on the western side of that fire. Volcanoville down on the southwest. And then the reason I'm going to be watching those closely, one, we saw that evidence that it was extremely close to those locations, but also when we looked at that fire weather forecast, it's going to be very dry, very hot throughout the day today. And then we also have that chance for some thunderstorms on Saturday. So we can actually just take one brief look at Saturday. It looks like the temperature is coming way down on Saturday. So that's very good news right there, although it's still fairly warm out there, 85 degrees. That's above your temperature threshold. And then humidity is still pretty dry, but at least not in the single digits. So that's where some of the moisture coming in from Hurricane K is actually going to help us on this fire. Because as those clouds move up from, I think I had the satellite imagery up. Goes imagery. So right now we're just going to look at the actual shot of Hurricane K as it's moving up from Southern California. As it comes up, it's going to be bringing some clouds, and hopefully the video is not just pausing right here. It looks like it's getting a bit slow. And yeah, it looks like we're still good. How about... Alright. Let's just go down and check out the Fairview fire. Goes imagery is not working on Hurricane K right now. Maybe in a few minutes we'll be able to take a look at that and see it a bit better. Actually, maybe this website works a little better. So right there, you can actually see Hurricane K down there. And if we zoom in right there, that's that moisture pushing up. So that's actually ties in with what we're about to talk about with the Fairview Fire. And it looks like you can actually still see the eye right there, which is pretty surprising because I thought by the time that it reached this far north, we wouldn't really even be able to see any eye because the fuel for hurricanes is warm water. So then as it starts getting into that cooler water, that's why Southern California very rarely gets any hurricanes, because by the time the hurricane comes up, hits that warmer water, basically dies down. But right there, looks like we can actually see the eye. You can see all of those clouds and that moisture pushing in. Now my concern with the Fairview Fire is going to be the winds that this hurricane is creating, and if that's going to fan the fire or if it's going to drop a bunch of rain, which would be good news to put out the fire, but then we also could have some potentially bad news if it leads to some mudslides on where the fire cleared out a lot of that vegetation. So this is the Fairview Fire. Right off the bat, first thing you probably notice, way less active than the Mosquito Fire recently. Mosquito Fire was just covered in red dots all around the entire perimeter. Fairview Fire, we have a few of those red dots on the eastern and southern edge, but not nearly as active as the Mosquito Fire, so that's why that was my main focus throughout the day. Ghost detections only shows a little heat on that western side, but I don't think I actually trust that right now because we have so many clouds moving over the area that I would be surprised if the satellites could even look through those clouds to be able to pick up heat on the fire itself. I think the number one thing I'm interested in with the Fairview Fire is what the weather conditions are like on the ground right now. Be interesting to see if we're getting some rain right now. It's also very interesting to see what the winds are doing because that's going to have some impact on our fire. So let's see, Ramona Bowl, we got Hemet right there, Diamond Valley Lake. Let's go to NWS. So these are actual weather stations across California. Let's come down here and see if we can find it. So there's Hemet. We've got Diamond Valley Lake right there. This looks pretty close to where the fire looks to be. So today, looks like we've already had a max temperature of 91 degrees, which is saying something because it's only 9:45 right now. Min relative humidity 27%, so that's a lot better than what we were seeing on the Mosquito Fire. Max wind gust, though, you can see is up to 32 miles per hour. So that's where we're starting to see some of the impacts from Hurricane K. Let's zoom in here. It's a bit small. So looking at that, you can see how the relative humidity jumps up right there. That's very weird to see for this time of the day. So right there, that's September 8th, 11 p.m. Oh, I think this is actually just overnight. 7 a.m. and then 9 a.m. So it is still going up between 7 and 9 a.m. And that is actually still a little out of the ordinary. Normally you're getting drier as your temperatures warm up and you're going throughout the day. But right now we're actually getting more moisture in as Hurricane K starts to move into Southern California. So just looking at right here, I think that 91 was actually from yesterday. Oh, wow. So it was 91 at 12 a.m. That is unbelievable. So 91 at 12 a.m. Here it looks like you can start to see where Hurricane K started to show up in Southern California. It looks like it was about 11 p.m. September 8th. We go from 4 mile per hour wind gusts up to 14, and then it just continues all the way until right now. Still have some 17 mile per hour gusts, so not actually that bad when it comes to our winds. Certainly strong enough to, fan the fire if there is anything left there. which there most likely is, because right now we haven't seen any evidence of rain yet. But that's going to be, I think, the next most important question to try to answer, to see if we've actually gotten some rain down there. But yeah, it did get some gusty conditions. We see those 29 mile per hour winds at about 4:30 this morning from Hurricane K over the Fairview fire. So let's come back here. Let's try to see if any of these stations collect rainfall. Okay, that shows our relative humidity going up once again, not seeing any rainfall there. And let's just try one more station. And then we could actually just try to, not seeing anything there. So let's check out NWS radar and see if we're picking up. All right, so right there you can see some of those remnants from Hurricane K. Let's press play so we can actually see this moving. So most likely we're getting rain underneath where you're seeing, this looks to be where we're getting some rain right now. Now the next thing that we can do is actually go over here. Let's just move down to Southern California so we have a good view of this. And let's check out how much rain we're expected to get throughout the day today. The reason that's a concern, this probably should have been the first thing that I did when we were talking about the Fairview fire. Go to National Weather Service, and the map of California, I've never seen anything like this. We've got excessive heat warnings throughout the entire Central Valley. Then we've got that orange color. Looks like a special marine warning throughout parts of the Central Coast and Northern California. Then we've got high wind warnings down in Southern California. And then also the flood warnings going on as well. So let's just click into SoCal. Peak wind gust today, expecting some 70 mile per hour winds. So this is all from Hurricane K that we're talking about. Weekend rainfall, they're expecting 4 to 6 inches down there. Most places though in that 0.5 to 1 inch. So that'll actually be, I would say, good news for the Fairview fire. But then if you pick up all of that rainfall at once, that could lead to some flash flooding. So that's why we do have some of that green color showing up. Where the green color shows up, that's where we have those flood watches right there. And then where we have that kind of, I'd call that maybe orangish yellow, that's that high wind warning where they are expecting some gusts in the 50 to even 70 mile per hour range from Hurricane K as it comes in. So I think I do just want to look at this high wind warning. Usually it says the timing on it. So high wind warning remains in effect until midnight tonight. So as Hurricane K goes over land, it's going to be cut off from its energy source. Looks like the eye, again, right down there. It's going to be cut off from its energy source, so then it is going to diminish. But as it moves in here, we're most likely having some very extreme activity down there, mostly in the form of those winds. Hot conditions continue with temperatures up to 92. Strong east winds, 25 to 35 miles per hour, with gusts up to 65 miles per hour. And then for the excessive heat warning, that's until 8 p.m. this evening. For the high wind warning, until midnight tonight. And then the impacts from this: damaging winds will blow down trees and power lines. Widespread power outages are possible. Travel will be difficult, especially for the high-profile vehicles. Extreme heat will significantly increase the potential for heat-related illnesses, particularly for those working or participating in outdoor activities. So that's actually one piece of good news from Hurricane K is, as all of these clouds move in right here, that's going to diminish the amount of heating that we're going to pick up throughout the day. So it's still going to be warm, but you'll most likely notice some cooling compared to the last couple of days. So let's just click in through here. Looks like it started showing up in Southern California about 5 a.m. Then we start to get that heavier rainfall around 8 a.m. And that kind of overlaps with where we're seeing the highest rainfall expected, that 4 to 6 inches right there. Then we can continue to follow it in. Looks like it starts pushing more into Southern California. Still have some of that heavier rain showing up. It almost looks like it's in the same area of where the center of that storm is. So that eye of the storm, that's where you're going to have your heaviest rainfall and your strongest winds will be around the eye wall right there. And then, yeah, I'd say that's enough to say right there. So then just clicking through, looks like that continues to move up, possibly getting some heavy rainfall in Los Angeles. That would be 2 a.m. tonight or tomorrow morning. And then that rain fills out and continues to move throughout California until it looks like it's gone by about 2 a.m. on September 11th. Some of that remaining moisture, though, can lead to some ongoing shatters throughout the weekend. So next thing we can do here, let's just check out Hurricane K. See if people are saying anything about it. These could be 4 good things to look at right here. Okay, got it. K's potential impacts to SoCal. Abrupt weather change, heat and increasing east winds Thursday night to Friday. Heavy rain and flash flood potential by Friday evening. Right there, that's a nice little shot of it. So it is going to be steering towards the west. This is something that I talked about at KSBW yesterday. It was moving up towards Southern California, but then it looked like it was going to steer off into the Pacific. And I think they show the path right there. So right there you can kind of see that little left turn that it's going to make. That's too many words to read right there. So maybe number 3 is the one that's applicable to us. Tropical storm conditions are beginning over portions of the Baja California Peninsula, and these conditions are expected to spread northward during the next day or so, where a tropical storm warning is in effect. It's right there. Risk of flash flooding. That red color is your moderate, so at least 40%. That yellow color is slight, so 15%. And then that green color is marginal, so 5%. And then right there, that goes along with that other graphic we're looking at, some of those extreme wind gusts, maximum wind gusts, up to seeing a 66 miles per hour right there. Then I think on that one other map, we saw even a 70. So let's go to Storm Prediction Center. Haven't used this in a while, so apologies if I'm a little bit slower on this website. So right there, this actually could be a good one to look at. That green color is where we have I would put that in the, that's kind of a confusing map. Let's go back to Pivotal and just look at total rainfall expected. And I actually want to change this to the state of California because I want to see if we're expected to get some over where the mosquito fire is as well, because that would actually be great news for the mosquito fire. So right there, moving in, most of that heavy rainfall down in Southern California. That's by Saturday afternoon. And then we start to see some of that move up, but not really any substantial rain for where the mosquito fire is. That's going to be about 30 miles to the west of Lake Tahoe. Continuing, looks like we do get maybe some better rainfall chances for the mosquito fire Sunday night into early Monday morning. But yeah, most of that heavy rainfall down in Southern California and throughout the day today. So now let's go down to SoCal because it's better to see the timing down here. So rain, this is September 8th, so 11 a.m. So this is pretty close to right now. Looks like we're going to start to see that. Oh, wait. We're looking over here. September 9th, so today. 8 a.m., start to see that rain show up. 11 a.m. starts to move in. 2 p.m. moves in a little bit farther. 5 p.m. continues. We start to get those heavier accumulations where you see that red color. That's over 2.5 inches. and then continues to move up. Looks like by about 5 a.m. on September 10th, we start to see those numbers tick up for Los Angeles up to 0.6 there. And then it just continues to spread out throughout Southern California. So we kind of covered the Fairview fire and Hurricane K in the same aspect, because I think the biggest impacts that we're going to have on the Fairview fire today will be from Hurricane K. Right now, it's a bit of a wild card because we were seeing those gusty winds, extremely gusty winds, up to 70 miles per hour forecasted in some places today. And then directly over the Fairview is for at least over 25 to 30 miles per hour. And because of that, that could lead to some rapid fire spread and some erratic fire behavior. But the good news is that we're also expecting some rainfall, and that could significantly help out on the Fairview fire. So one other thing, this was actually going to be the first thing we were going to do for the Fairview fire, is look at some of those shots right there. Somebody posted the update on it. Right here, this is what we're looking for. So this is basically going to tell us most of what we need to know about the Fairview fire. So unfortunately, we do have those 2 fatalities on this fire. Size looks like it's at 27,463. So a lot of growth. And then 5% containment. Structures destroyed, 11. Structures damaged, 3. Structures threatened, 18,753. And it says winds will increase from the east, causing any unsecured line to become active, especially in those on the western perimeter. Embercast will dramatically increase as the strong 40-mile-per-hour winds enter the area. So those are the winds from Hurricane K. And then long-range spotting over a mile will be possible with probability of ignition at 85%. What that means is as the winds come in from Hurricane K, it has the potential to pick up those burning embers, toss them a mile, which means that's going to be very difficult for firefighters because they have some good lines around the fire that can just take up burning embers, throw those over the lines, and then start new little fires. And then with that probability of ignition at 85%, that's because the fuels in this area are so exceptionally dry that any little burning ember has an 85% chance of starting a fire. So, sorry, I had to take a quick drink of water. So that's the main concern with the Fairview fire, I'd say, throughout the day today, is those winds from Hurricane K leading to spot fires all around this area. So thunderstorms with LAL3, don't really know what that is, and heavy rain will be possible during the period. So that's where we could get a little good news from Hurricane K on this one if it drops some good rain. Bad news could be if it leads to some mudslides in this area. Fire activity will decrease as the winds subside and rain-scattered thunderstorms continue. So that's some good news right there. Possibility rain totals of 1 to 1.5 inches by Sunday night. ERC level, so energy release component, that's just a good indication of kind of fire danger. Levels will retreat rapidly from the 90th percentile. So that, I would say, is a lot of bad and good news. And I purposely said it in that order because the bad news would be, as Hurricane K is coming in, it's going to just bring a lot of very strong winds, which can lead to that spotting up to a mile away with an 85% chance of those little embers starting a new fire. Overall, though, I'd say we have some good news because once those winds die down, then we just have the chances for 1 to 1.5 inches of rain, and then our overall fire danger is just going to rapidly decrease. So that right there, I think, is everything we really need to know on the Fairview fire, and I'm going to retweet that right now because that's great information to know right there. So yeah, I think we pretty much covered everything. We looked at the mosquito fire first, Then we looked at kind of Hurricane K and the Fairview fire together. Actually, one thing that we haven't done yet, which might actually be the thing you're the most interested in. Let's go to all of California and let's see when this heat wave is finally going to end. So the easiest way to do that is looking at temperature anomalies. So how high above average are your temperatures? So that is Thursday afternoon. Actually, it might be useful to look at that. So Thursday afternoon, down in Southern California, we're about 15 degrees above average. Throughout much of Northern California, we are even up to 30 degrees above average. And then if we look at this afternoon, still looks like we have those 30 degree above average temperatures in some parts of Northern California, much of the Central Valley, about 20 to 25 degrees above average. So looks like today is going to be very hot. Southern California, huge cool down as all of that moisture moves in from Hurricane K right there. Or I don't know if I should still be calling it Hurricane K. It's probably at tropical storm force by now if those winds are below 74 miles per hour. But it was Hurricane K, so I'm just going to keep calling it that, just to not confuse anybody. So looking down here, huge cool down for Southern California where all that moisture is moving in. Still a very hot day for much of California though. So I'd say heat wave continues this afternoon. Now let's look at tomorrow afternoon, massive cool down. So especially for all of Southern California, you're now seeing below average temperatures. So that blue color means it's cooler than you normally would be this time of the year. So we're not only no longer 20 degrees above average, we're actually going to be below average in Southern California tomorrow afternoon. And then even the Central Valley and just much of California trends right back more towards normal conditions. Still have a lot of that heat in Northern California, or far Northern California, but overall looks like that heat wave sticking around for basically everywhere except SoCal today, but then we significantly cool down tomorrow. So I'm sure a lot of people are looking forward to that. Although it does look like Central Valley still about 5 degrees above average this weekend, but we will certainly take that compared to 25 degrees above average. Now one other thing we can do just want to look at this hazards map. This one's a little bit better than the one we were looking at earlier. Actually, a lot better. So that kind of purplish color, that's our excessive heat warnings. Goes throughout much of the Central Valley, covers the Mosquito fire, I believe right there. And then down along the coast as well. Then where we see that orange, that's your heat advisory. Okay, that makes more sense than what we were looking at earlier. On the other map we looked at, it looked like it was a marine statement, but that didn't make much sense for these inland spots. So that's your heat advisory. The green, actually we'll go to that gold color. I think that's a good way to put it. That's your high wind warning. That's where we could get some up to 65 mile per hour wind gusts from Hurricane K right there. And then that green color is your flood watches because of that, all that moisture, thunderstorms, and rainfall coming in from Hurricane K. Now, that probably would be a good place to end it, but I'm just curious to see temperature probabilities 6 to 10 days out. So this is some great news, actually. I actually wanted to look at this because I was hoping we would have some good news. 6 to 10 days out, all of California is expected to be below average temperatures. So while this entire last week was one of the craziest heat waves that I've ever seen, it was record-breaking throughout many parts of the state, looks like 6 days from now to 10 days from now, all of California, except for maybe those little spots right there, is expected to be below average conditions. So, or below average temperatures, which usually means relative humidity will be a little bit higher, which means fire danger will be less than it was this week, which isn't really a huge surprise because fire danger this week was about as high as, I wouldn't say as high as you're ever going to see it because we didn't really have that wind component, but when it comes to temperatures, it certainly was. So it's good to see that those temperatures will be cooling down. We do still have that heat today, but we are moving in the right direction. So that pretty much sums up everything on the Mosquito Fire, the Fairview Fire, Hurricane K, the heat, the flooding going on. Lots to talk about for California today. Later this afternoon, it's going to be very warm, as we were saying. It's going to be drying out. I'm expecting a lot of activity on the Mosquito Fire. I'm curious to see what happens on the Fairview Fire, so I'm definitely going to be doing some updates later this afternoon. You can subscribe to this channel for more information on everything going on right now, and then also on future wildfires throughout this season, and not only this season, probably for the next 25 years. So hope this video was helpful, and thanks for watching.